Now we're playing the game and we're totally scoring, learning how to make a virtual business boring, showing up every morning, ready for the show. I'ma get ready. Cold engaging virtual meetings 2.0.
All right. Hey, this is John Chen, and it's time for another engaging virtual meetings podcast. Hopefully, you'll love this beautiful view. This is Amelia Island, where I'm currently the virtual MC for the GHCA, or the Georgia Healthcare Association, all this week. But while I'm not in Georgia, I get a chance to hang out here. I met this person at Innovation Women, as also in Robbie Samuel's No More Boring Zoom Fridays. And yeah, so I'm excited. She's actually coming to America, and she has a lot to share with us. Hold on, let me actually make sure I do the correct musical intro for you. There we go. Let's bring in the one and only Srijata. There we go. Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
We're doing great here in Seattle today. The sun is out. It's June 5th. We're looking for good things to happen. How about you?
Amazing. And I am already here in the US, sitting in Cupertino, California, and sun is out here too. The weather is nice.
You must be around the block from my sister, who also lives in Cupertino.
Oh my God, yes, I'm sure.
Well, let's do a favor for our groups around here. Srijata, do me a favor and introduce yourself, who you are, and what you do.
Okay, so I am Srijata, and I am a Setback Leadership Champion, an author, and a keynote speaker. I speak on something called Setback Leadership, which is essentially the art and science of how leaders can identify opportunities among challenges and leverage them for exponential growth and success, despite adversities. So that's what, in a nutshell, that I am professionally. Personally, I am a mother of a teenager. You can imagine when I say that. And I am enjoying my life sitting in the US now.
Well, welcome, of course, to the U.S. My kids are, of course, all grown. How old is your teenager, and what's something maybe unique about her?
Well, she's 14, and what's unique about her is she's like the normal teenagers. Rolling eyes.
Yeah.
No, but when it comes to jokes apart, seriously, she has a lot of uniqueness. She is she is a very creative person. She has this understanding of creativity in a very different manner versus me. I'm a writer. She's
Yep.
not, but she's a very good visualizer when it comes to visualizing a scene or and she does cartoon strips, or the toon strips that we call it in today's teen world, teen language. So yeah, she's good at that.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's see. There's talk a little bit more. What were you doing in India, and of course, what brings you to America?
So what I was doing in India was that I was doing the same thing. I was actually, I started researching about this topic called setback leadership since 2017. And it happened as a accident, honestly. It was not meant to be. I never wanted to be a speaker or an author or a thought leader in that sense. But it just happened because I got an opportunity to speak at an event, and the topic was failures. Talk about your entrepreneurship failures. And when I went on stage and spoke about it and came down from the stage, that entire experience and how people responded to it gave me an understanding that this is a topic that the whole world needs to hear. Failures is something that we brush under the carpet, and we don't see it as an opportunity to grow and succeed. We don't even see it as opportunity to learn something, leave alone success and growth, right? So that's what I used to do. I have been studying this since 2017. I wrote my first book in 2019 and second book in 2022 about the same topic. And I've been speaking, I've been coaching, I've been consulting companies since then.
Well, let's talk about the last 3 years. One of the things when I tell people about the studio that I have, and you've seen the studio that I have, that it's the results of thousands of failures. There's so many things. In fact, even today, I just saying though, you're not immune. I'm 35 years and I still got caught on mute because the batteries in my remote mic died and I didn't notice. Usually I have like three ways to notice and I still don't have it. So I'm kind of curious, what were some of the failures that you feel like you had that really what are some of the failures you had, and how do you need to view them so that they become something positive for you?
Yeah, I think, if you ask me about failures, what are the failures that I've had? I can actually literally create year by year timeline, how people create their success timelines, right? I can create those failure timelines. But having said that, there are two failures that completely changed the trajectory. First one actually changed the way I think about failures or think about setbacks. And the second one actually changed the results that you see today. So let me talk about the first one first. I was all about 19 and I have always been a overachiever student, overachiever kid who had never failed in their life. I was always the topper in the school, in the college, and so on. So the age of 19, as I go into college, riding high in my accolades, in my achievements the year before, after doing my 12th board exams, I go to college, and the next year in the final exam, I fail in the very same subject which I had scored the highest the year before. And to me, that was a big thing, because think about it, someone who was given a star position as a student, as a young kid in the school, saying that, hey, you are like the highest scorer and blah, and blah, and blah. The same girl, the same person fails in the same subject in the next year. And was it really my fault? Probably not. There were certain circumstances that were not in my favor. It was not that I went to college and I started enjoying partying and having boyfriends and this and that, but it was actually I was going through malaria at that point in time. I was suffering from malaria when I did that exam. So it was an external condition that was, that was channelizing my result, or that was the reason behind the kind of result that I had. But then how society changes our mind, right? The society always tells you whenever you fail, it is always your mistake. It's not anything else. And that is something was bogging me down. So much so that I was almost on the verge of taking my life. I was having suicidal thoughts and other things. But somehow I think good sense prevailed, and I called my dad from my hostel. And I told him, I confessed to him, saying that I failed, Daddy. And he said, okay, what happened? He said, I don't know, but I failed. This is what happened. I've got really bad marks in it, and I don't know what to do. I'm feeling ashamed. I feel I've let you down. And I went on into that rant. And then he asked me two questions. And those two questions actually changed the way I see failure today. The first question he asked was, did you do your best? And I said, what kind of question is that, Daddy? I definitely did my best. I couldn't have done better than this. I said, okay. The second question he asked was, if you knew how you could do it better, would you have done it? And my answer to that was, of course, yes, I would have done it better. Then he said, you know it. It's not your fault. You have put in enough efforts that was required. The results don't define you. Your efforts define you. And honestly speaking, John, since then, I have been following these two questions. Every time there is a setback, there is a failure, there's a challenge, there is an adversity on my way. And I learned from that every single time. That was the first incident. The second one was after I started my first startup. So I'm a first generation entrepreneur. And I I became entrepreneur after coming from corporate world. So I did not join entrepreneurship immediately after my graduation, but I went into corporate world for about 10 years before joining entrepreneurship. As I joined entrepreneurship, I was all excited, completely pumped up about doing a lot of new things and doing a lot of interesting things. And this was around the time when startups, entrepreneurship was seen as the coolest thing to do, the best thing to do. It's like all the poster boys, all the poster, folks of business world were all startup folks, right? So I become an entrepreneur, and being the first generation entrepreneur, do mistakes after mistakes after mistakes after mistakes. And what happens because of that is I lose a lot of money in the business. We lose a lot of money in the business, and we're not able to take it forward to the next level. That's first thing that happened. The second thing that happened is your entire extended family starts blaming you, saying that you are very well done. You're doing really well in your corporate world. Why did you even choose to go into this space? And why did you even do this? This is all your fault and all of that. That particular incident, that particular, I would say episode, it's not even an incident. It is actually an episode, a period of time that I went through, actually taught me to be more resilient, to look at different solutions for the same problems. And if I hadn't really failed in my first startup today, I wouldn't be here today talking to you about setback leadership, about what I do today and what I've achieved in the last 3-4 years.
Goodwill Hunting, they use that line, which is like, it's not your fault.
I can't hear you clearly, John. I think something is wrong with your battery.
Of course. How about now?
Yes, now it's perfect.
Oh, good. See, look, I was going to say in the movie Goodwill Hunting, they use that line a lot, which is, it's not your fault. I don't know if you remember that scene in the movie Goodwill Hunting.
Yeah.
Where the therapist finally breaks him down saying, it's not your fault. Why is that so powerful?
It's powerful because, most often since childhood, we are blamed for everything that goes wrong with us.
Okay.
A child is unable to do something. Let's say child is unable to read A, B, C, D. The parents are saying it's your fault. Oh, come on. You didn't learn, it's like when a parent is asked to read or write Mandarin, how they're going to behave for the first time. That's exactly how ABCD is for children, right? So it comes from there. I think it's the upbringing that makes us believe that it is all our fault. We should take the blame. We should feel guilty about it. And we should do something about it, which is really beyond our control, which you can't really do about it.
I'm just curious then, that how does setback leadership intersect with personal responsibility? I'm just curious, like if those two intersect or if they have different dyads.
No, definitely. There is a lot of intersection. So setback leadership is actually sitting on a framework of 3 things, which is together, I call it a setback SOP framework or model. So there is one side, there is the mindset. Then there is the process, and there is the toolkits that are used. Now, most often we stay in the mindset itself. We believe that our resilience comes from our mindset. Mm-hmm. It does. I'm not denying that at all. But then what happens is, and that's where personal responsibility comes, that whenever there is a sudden challenge that's thrown our way, it takes us by surprise. Mm-hmm. And our resilience mindset goes out of the window. The reason is that the moment we are put through a challenge, put through let's say a situation which is going to be harmful for us, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever way. Earlier days, it used to be physically harmful situations. At that time, humans would either behave in a flight response or a fight response. Right? That same instincts, the original instincts continue even today's world. Even though the fear is only a fear. It's a fake fear. It's not a real fear. You're not bodily going to be harmed by an animal. It's something your mind makes you believe that it is harmful, or it is something that's going to trouble you. But what happens is, the moment this sudden thing happens, so automatically that response changes to flight response to fright response. And that spoils, or rather clouds, our judgment about an action or a decision making or productivity at that point in time, while you're going through that challenge. And that makes us take bad decisions, take actions that we will regret later, and eventually live unhappily. So mindset, yes, that is one part of it. That's where the personal responsibility comes. But the personal responsibility can be extended to the process that we go through while we are actually going through challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us believe in quick actions when we are going through challenges or going through adversities or anything like that. And in that process, we react, we don't respond. So through Setback SOP framework, I teach people how to really alter that, mental process that is spoiling the judgment, that is clouding the judgment from the right decision making, the right actions, and translate it into a setback SOP, which is standard operating process during challenges, during setbacks. And then there are toolkits that can help you to continuously practice this and build your muscles in a manner that when the sudden challenge comes, your regular response is not flight and fright, but setback SOP response.
What's something that's on your SOP then? Like, I'm sure there's some familiar or things that you would put on all your SOPs. What's one of yours?
So mine is this is very popular, and this works with me. So I do two things. One thing is, the moment I am confronted with a challenge, I take a pause.
Yep.
I don't react. I don't respond.
Mm-hmm.
I give it some simmering time. I give it some time so that it can simmer. It can really, I can really absorb what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
I choose to not react anything, do anything about it. Take a time out for myself, maybe go take a walk, listen to some music, go do something else, and then I come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I reflect on it. Reflect on it without having any emotions attached to it. And then after I have reflected, I write down 5 things that can be done without impacting impacting my current state or impacting anything that is going to disturb the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
I don't take decisions till then. Then I mull over that reflection for some time. And then finally, I go ahead and take those actions. So it's always pause, reflect, and then take an action.
Good things to do. Speaking of taking action, right? I believe you had to spend a good portion of your time in the virtual world the last 3 years.
Yes.
And so what was one of your best virtual meetings, whether it was you leading or somebody else that you were attending somebody else's session in the last 3 years?
That's a good one. I think I've attended one event where it was a virtual conference, and a presenter named Vin Young, if I'm right, his name, he was presenting about communication mastery in the event, and that blew my mind completely. Because it felt like I was watching a movie. It didn't feel like as if you're sitting like this and conversing, but it did feel like a movie that was going in front of me.
It's Vin Giang, Ging.
Giang, yeah.
Oh, he's a magician too.
Yes, he is. And he is unbelievable on virtual. You should check out his videos, virtual speeches, if he has put up any of them. They are absolutely wow.
And what made it a wow? You said it was like watching a movie. Was it the magic or was it something else? Or
so a couple of things. So he has a full-blown studio. Well, he is an Australian who sometimes is in US and sometimes is in Australia. Yeah. And he's got 2 full-blown studios, number one. Yeah. right? And number two, he has got some 5 cameras in different angles, and he changes those cameras multiple times during a presentation, which is entirely practiced and well produced, right? That is second thing. The lighting, the interaction doesn't stop, anytime during those, let's say, half an hour or 40-minute speech. And he is jumping, like, I mean, I'm saying we are sitting right now on our seats, but he's standing, and he's actually, you can see his movements going on, and he's so well versed with the whole thing that is happening. So he's moving around, he's, let's say, telling us something or teaching us something, but the cameras change whenever he needs to show whatever perfect way. It's like an interactive movie, so you can decide, okay, what do you want to see, and it changes like that. So I found his presentations really, really interesting.
Well, I think there's some key aspects in there. One is that, camera changes. That's one thing. I'm not sure if there's research yet on video fatigue, but if you just go back and look at movies, right, one of the things that they do is that they'll learn how to change cuts to different videos and views at different times. And so I think those are some important aspects that go around it. And then other things that he's doing is the movement. Again, if you stand up and you're in a three-dimensional space, even if you're on a flat screen, right? We know that movies have the ability to create a three-dimensional sense around it, and that cinematic part is really one of the keys. I mean, maybe the last piece is just the thoughtfulness, right? Once
Yeah.
you know that somebody's moving around like this in a space, and you see that they're doing it really smoothly, that they prepared. They
Yeah.
rehearsed and prepared, and that leads you, to an experience to have. And again, not many people are doing that here online, but they should.
Yes,
And that's
that's
why, yeah, I built my studio so, you can stand up in it too. You can do other things like this, which is, make it look like you are walking inside of, a resort, as opposed to, we're just sitting in front of the back of a resort. And those are really some key items I think that are important. It's great though. I have not seen him speak, so this is a great reference. I'd love the opportunity to ideally meet him. I just met another magician, if I believe I got the name right, is Trig Watson. He just appeared on America's Got Talent, and he uses like a vertical monitor, kind of like an iPhone, and he ends up doing magic around that monitor. And I'm not exactly sure how he did it, but it does look very, very cool. It's
yeah.
definitely engaging. I also think this is some keys here too that speakers need to think about. While we're not all magicians, magicians do have this opportunity. And my good friend Nash Fung is like this now too, where he's using the magic as part of his talk. So if you use the magic like a metaphor in a way to enhance what you're trying to say, as opposed to just to entertain, I think that's another piece that's really important. I don't know if you agree with the term edutainment, right? There's a lot of places now, as speakers, we need to be thinking about how to entertain people at the same time while educating them.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I am a big fan of edutainment, because I do believe that speaker's job is not to teach. For that, there are teachers. You are speakers. We got to teach. We got to definitely provide the right kind of information or give the right kind of knowledge out there, but in a manner much more interesting way, much more exciting way, which can really bring the audience feel about it, and feel to take the required actions that they need to take through those speeches. So yes, I am totally with you on that, John.
What are some of the things that you do then to bring people along on that emotional journey? I suspect, I do know that you would use storytelling as one of your avenues. I'm not sure if you have others that you use throughout the program.
Yeah, so I definitely do storytelling during the program, but I start engaging with my audiences before itself. So whenever I speak with an audience, I
Mhm.
take permission from the corporates to reach out to a few of them to get into their brains. That's the first thing that I do. And when I'm sharing stories on stage, it's the stories relating to such people in the audience. So
Mhm.
therefore, there is an absolute 100% relatability. I am not talking about somebody else in some other universe, in some other space, but I'm actually talking about their own stories in their own ways, the problems that they're facing, and how we can go about doing things. So that brings a lot more connection building during speeches.
So is
Now,
that part of what your process then too? Is you're saying all your talks, especially to corporations or companies, are customized because you go through a process beforehand with them before you deliver the keynote. Is that right?
yes, so it is customized to an extent. It is customized to certain parameters or certain stories that are going to be there in those speeches. But is my entire speech customized? No.
Right.
It talks about the same things. It's just that the references are different. It's
Yeah.
just that the stories are different. The people that are there in those references are different, and how they react to it is different. But at the end of it, the learning is the same. The points are the same. The action items are the same, and the takeaways are the same.
So you basically, that's the framework, right? Is that kind of like where the setback leadership comes in?
Yes.
How would you describe the setback leadership framework? Because again, well, right now I think it's probably happening. I mean, it's always happening, but right now I think recession is a key. Layoffs is actually a real thing that's happening. A lot of my friends at Microsoft were laid off. It gets interesting too. Someone did statistics. A lot of them in the 50s, right? People who have more expensive salaries, right, got laid off, even though they have tremendous value and networks and company knowledge. So I'm just kind of curious, what is the framework of setback leadership have with companies that are having to go through challenges right now?
Well, see, it's. I mean, I would wish that more companies actually took or imbibed the principles of setback leadership, but honestly, I don't see many companies doing it. It's I'm talking from the policy levels and the rules and regulations levels and the decision making levels and all of that. We can keep on teaching about setback leadership to individuals, telling them, hey, you pause, you reflect, and then you take an action, but it's not going to help. There are pillars to it, right? One are the employees themselves who are who are actually are the victims of these layoffs, and the second side are the leaders who are they really setback leaders? We need to find out how they responded to that situation is what defines. And the third one is the company itself, the policies and the rules and regulations and how they make decisions at certain times. I feel if somebody really wants to absorb the entire principles of setback leadership, it's not going to be that easy. It's not like, okay, do 1 2 3 things and you are done. It's not a quick fix solution. It's a long-term requirement. It requires a lot more deliberation, a lot more work, a lot more practice, and a lot more action in the entire company level, starting from their employees to their leaders to the management and the rules and regulations that come with it, the policies that come with it, along with it. So that's how I see it. I don't say that I can turn it around in just one speech. I never say that. I say that that's only the starting point, but then to make a real difference, there's a work to do.
Well, here's an example from one of today's programs is that I was in this program here. I'll highlight this for just a second since the text is small. There was a presentation today about excellence, and they were saying you're 1 in 4 quadrants, right? Quadrant 1 is the growth only mindset. The quadrant 2 is the bottom quadrille, right? It's a defined culture, but little to no adoption rate. The status quo is quadrant 3. Where costs are low, but revenue is low. And then, of course, a culture of excellence. And what was interesting was, let's see, what were the numbers? The 50% were in quadrant 2. 35% were in quadrant 1. 13 to 15% were in quadrant 3. And nobody was in, who said, out of a good collection of companies said they were in quadrant 4.
Wow.
So, yeah, well, where does I don't know if that fits your statistics of what you're seeing.
It does. And I'm not surprised at all, because what we are right now doing is we are thinking, which as long as our machineries run, we're fine. And I'm talking about, when I say machineries, I'm talking about the entire functions of a corporate, and I'm also talking about the employees under it and everybody else, right? The point that I'm trying to make is, if we are not driving towards the excellence, if we are not imbibing the new way of looking at leadership, if we are not ready to listen to newer voices, we are not doing disservice to somebody else. We are actually doing disservicing to ourselves. Because we, by virtue of not going after it, we are remaining in quadrant 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm. And so, what do you think is one of the key factors to get into 4?
I think it has to be top down for any companies. I believe when you really want to make a culture shift, when you want to make a mindset shift, it has to come from top down. But then the challenge that I see with corporates right now and in the last few years is that they believe the top people who are in the executive committee, they don't have any flaws. They're perfect. It's the people downwards. It's the let's say the third level managers and their teams
Mm-hmm.
that needs the training.
Oh.
And that's where it becomes completely redundant.
Who's the top leader? Who's the top-down leader that you really respect or appreciate?
That's a good question. I think one top-down leader that I really respect is the CEO, I think president or CEO of ServiceNow. His name is Bill McDermott. And I love the way he leads his company. I wouldn't say he's perfect or his team is perfect or the way company is running, that is perfect. But then they're doing quite a few things that are the right things to do in the organization.
Excellent. We got some people chatting on here too. Said they needed those reminders about did you do your best and if you knew how to do it better.
Oh, thank you.
So, and hello to Dexter Tomei, who's watching us on Facebook Live. All right.
Hi, Dexter.
Let's talk about this then too. Well, Srijata, you just made some changes in your life. You're getting a chance to see new things. What do you see for the future of virtual in at least think you're going to be delivering programs for the next, decade or so?
Absolutely. I would say it's a mix. It's going to be a mix, like how we had 90% to 95% virtual meetings. That would probably reduce, is what I'm seeing it as.
Yep.
But nonetheless, the quality of virtual events will keep increasing.
Yes.
I think now sitting in Zoom and in seeing those small boxes is become really boring. It has become really boring. So therefore, it is important that we bring out, ways to make virtual meetings more and more engaging, how, what, etc. But virtual is not going away anywhere soon, I would say. It's going to remain for some time. And we must become better every single day to deliver that kind of excellent virtual meetings, virtual conferences, and other things.
Yeah, I'm working a lot on hybrid. Hybrid right now does actually seem to be fulfilling its goal. And I actually posted today saying, who else is disappointed when like you want to see this content, but it's in some other state and some other thing, and you go to click on it, and there's no hybrid option. We're doing a lot of things like in that cinematic work, especially in a live environment, that are so important. Multiple cameras, right? Clear audio is such an important factor. The worst is in hybrid when the speaker walks away from the mic, engages the in-person audience who also doesn't have a mic, and now the virtual just goes dead, right? And nobody knows. And then, and of course, the speaker doesn't come back. It does require a new set of training. The speaker never comes back and says, "Oh, I was talking to Srijata and she was saying blah blah blah." Like recognizes that half of this or a good portion of this audience is not hearing anything. In fact, actually, I heard feedback in this room that the in-person rooms also could not hear the question because it was like a 3 or 4 or 500 person room. So without the use of a microphone, everyone that's also out of earshot is also losing out and not getting any context. So I don't know. Have you seen, what are some of the best practices you've seen in hybrid if you have attended or spoken hybrid, Srijata?
I am yet to do hybrid, honestly, but I would love to take up that challenge because I love taking new challenges. So I would definitely like to do that. And interestingly, I have been in a lot of bad hybrid meetings.
It's bad, right? It's what I'm calling now second class citizen, which is you get in the hybrid seat with a virtual seat of a hybrid, and now you're immediately like in coach or the worst class or like up in the rafters because of so many bad things. What were some of the bad things that you saw in your hybrid?
Yeah, same thing. Like, I don't know what's going on. What's the context? The speaker, either the speaker is in a virtual, let's say the speaker is on Zoom, and let's say 50, 60 people are sitting there, or 100 people are sitting there. You can hear the speaker, but you like, okay, yes, no, am I able to connect with the speaker or not? And then when you connect, then the rest of them who are virtual, they can't hear you. So the question that you've asked, it is the speaker's responsibility to repeat that questions, acknowledge where the question came from. Is it virtual? Is it in person? And then answer the question. So you're right from a point of view of speakers, and I acknowledge that we speakers need new type of trainings if we really want to nail virtual, nail hybrid. I mean, otherwise it's going to be one or the other will feel like the second class citizens. And in fact, I have left a lot of meetings, a lot of conferences when I felt like that, like a second class citizen saying that, chuck it, I'm not interested anymore.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the worst case is that you disengage, right? Instead,
Yeah.
instead of engage is disengage. I also think something that's important, becoming even more important now too, the speaker needs to be able to see at least a window of virtual,
Yes.
right? And a lot of times in the best virtual, what they do is they'll set up multiple monitors so that you can see, hundreds of people in virtual. And I think that that's another key aspect so that uh, the speaker can then react to some people, right?
Yeah.
Saying, "Oh, I see Srijata, is in India. She's shaking her head. Yes, right. She's agreeing." You can get some of this feedback back.
Yeah.
I think the other ones that I've seen too, they've dedicated entire 50-inch televisions and turned them vertical and only stick the chat in it.
That's interesting. I like that because see what happens, the difference between an in-person conference or an in-person meeting versus a virtual is that in-person, you don't talk to the person sitting next to you while the speaker is speaking, because that's going to be distracting. But when it is in virtual, I like that chat, basically as a speaker, I want that chat happening there
Yes,
because I want to see what's going on in the minds of the audience, and
that's right.
I then will pick up the points from there and then reiterate it. That brings in more engagement, that brings in more connections and all of that. So it's a very different aspect. And I like the fact that the chat was visible because most often the speakers say, oh, I can't see the chat, so I can't respond. I don't know what's happening. Work that way, sorry.
It's like a $200 television, right? It's really not that hard technically, but there is this design forethought that you really
Yeah,
need to have if you really want to make, I think, hybrid fully engaging, and that's some of the other things. And they require something like your magician, right, or your speaker that you like so much. It
yeah,
requires a specialized studio to create these experiences, and that's what I think is also coming up next is that key communicators, such as executives, by the way, right? Start redesigning your space, right? By going hybrid, you can not only really connect to your headquarters who might, be near you, but you also can connect with all of your people around the world
yes.
simultaneously in a real-time fashion if you really start to embrace some of this technology and tools. And it just, that's like, is there a technology leader I look up to? There's probably only one right now. I mean, Tony Robbins right now is really one person who really pushed virtual super hard,
Yeah.
to the point of like being able to have address 40,000 people virtually. He actually discovered it was better in some ways, and it's certainly cheaper because he used to have to pay venues and hotels to, house 40,000 people. And some people have terrible views because they're so far back, right?
Yes, yes, I agree. I agree with that. Yeah.
So anyway, so there's some things where I hope that digital or virtual will be better. I certainly hope that there are some people who realize that hybrid needs to be better too, using that. All right, well, Srijata, let's do this. If people only remember one thing from this talk, what do you think it should be?
Hmm. Can I say two things instead of one thing? I always like giving more. You see, that's the way it is.
I'll just let you break the rules. Go ahead.
Okay. So I think the one thing that people should remember is that it's not always your fault.
Yeah.
Ask yourself those two questions. Did you give your best? Would you have done something different had you known how to? That's your number one. And number two is if you really want to engage in virtual meetings, you know who to go to. John is your man.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you so much. And if you do your first hybrid, I would love to be there somehow. That really, if you get the opportunity to do hybrid, Srijata, I would love to be able to do that for you again, somehow, again, put you either in a live audience and project it, or get you into a studio with a live audience. I think all of those things are possible. I will be in the Bay Area. I know at least once during the holiday season. I now have enough portable equipment that we could actually make that happen. So anyways, think about that. That would be something, I think that would be really cool to do. And I think you would discover it. I'd love to see how you as a speaker interpret hybrid, again, with your entrepreneurial mindset.
Definitely. I'm looking forward for that, that challenge coming my way. And I would love to take it on and see whether I suck at it or I do a good job of it. Definitely, I'm going to be with you on that. I'll make sure that my best man is there with me while I'm taking that challenge.
Well, that's the other part too, right? If you want to fail less, get some guides, right? And let people who have done other stuff show you the way,
Yeah.
whatever it is, whether it's, dealing with setbacks, all right? PowerPoint slides, like presentations and designs. These are lots of areas that I'm not that good at. I'm pretty good at, but I have a lot of other friends who are way better. And I let, when need be, I lean on them, and that can help you prevent. All right. That's one of my jobs, is to prevent well-meaning people, right? Who are doing their best from preventing and making lots and lots of mistakes on virtual. So
Absolutely.
anyways, Srijata, thank you so much for your time. And of course, welcome to Cupertino. And again, I hope to see you also inside of the real world when we get a chance. Thanks again for your time today.
Thank you so much, John. It was great.
All right, this is John Chen, and this has been another Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast with Srijata. Her link to her LinkedIn is also inside of this program. Make sure and check it out. She is also amazingly available and helpful. If you need help with your company or organization that might be having a setback, make sure and look her up. By the way, our podcast is now available at engagingvirtualmeetings.online. Again, engagingvirtualmeetings.online. A new episode is being released every week. And if you want to be the next person to be interviewed here, make sure to go to engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet/online. And you too can be the next guest here on Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. Have an awesome day, and we will see you next time.
Don't we start people and keep old people? Show you got heart.